All right, good evening, everyone, and thank you all for joining us. My name is Alyssa Karpenka, and I'm the event coordinator for McNally Robinson Booksellers in Saskatoon. This event is coming to you from Treaty 6 territory, the traditional lands of the Cree, Saulteaux, Dene, Dakota, Lakota, Nakota, and Métis nations. Just a note that this event is being live streamed to our YouTube page, so please be aware of the webcam to your right. I'd also like to take this moment to encourage anyone to silence their phones for the duration of the event. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the Saskatoon launch of Kink Bands by David Martin and published by New West Press. Thank you to David for being here tonight and for working with us to create this event. I'd also like to thank our guest reader for the evening, Sheri Benning, for being here. David Martin works as a literacy instructor in Calgary and as an organizer for the Single Onion Poetry Series. His first collection, Swan, was a finalist for the Raymond Souster Award and the City of Calgary W Mitchell Book Prize. David's work has been awarded the CBC Poetry Prize and has been shortlisted for prizes from FreeFall, Vallum, and PRISM International. As well, his poems have appeared in numerous journals across Canada. Sheri Benning's fourth collection of poetry, Field Requiem, was published by Parkenet Press in 2021. Poems from Field Requiem appeared in the Forward Book of Poetry 2023, the Paris Review, and the Times Literary Supplement, among other places. Field Requiem was a finalist for the Derek Walcott Prize for Poetry, the Pat Lowther Memorial Award, and 2 Saskatchewan Book Awards. Her previous poetry collections include The Season's Vagrant Light, New and Selected Poems, Ben Moon Song, and Earth After Rain. She teaches at the University of Saskatchewan. I'll now turn things over to Sheri. Please give her a warm welcome.
Thank you very much, Alyssa. And thanks everybody for coming. I'm very excited to be David Martin's opening act this evening. So I'm just going to read a few poems from Field Requiem. What I'm going to read from is a long poem that sits at the center of the book and makes use of the Requiem format. It visits abandoned spaces in rural Saskatchewan. Northeast, 10, 36, 22, west of 2nd. Canola, pulse, cereal, flax. The field northwest of the yard site. Past the shelter belt of unshaved evergreens. Caraganas and buffalo beans growing through rusted machinery. Grain cart and auger, pull-type swather, circa 1984. Canola, pulse, cereal, flax, brushed nap of stubble, GPS tracked factory stamped seed rows, clots of soil, desiccated scabs, claw marks from the heavy harrow spreading last season's straw, chaff. Canola, pulse, cereal, flax, Roundup, anhydrous ammonia, nitrogen gas, granular phosphorus, sulfur, potash, 120 pounds per acre of wheat seed, broadleaf herbicide, fungicide, insecticide, glyphosate-resistant ragweed in low spots and sloughs, contagion of snow geese, their many-throated scream, a terrible forgetting. This is where the boy felt the animal's wet-eyed stare, coyote, fox, jackrabbit, badger. This is where he followed tracks, set snares in estrus scent and molt, scat, shed fur. This is where he lay, a deer's wallow of slender wheatgrass, bluegrass, brome, and sedge. Watched catkins lift in updrafts, soft rattle of aspens, dozed in the heavy breath of bloom, balsam, wolf willow, chokecherries, Saskatoons. This is where he came in sorrow after his father made him shoot the horned owl perched in the spruce north of the chicken coop. No proof the owl killed chicks. Now this is where the man, neck in the noose of profit margins and farm credit, runs the roam plow, the bush disc, clears scrub, rakes roots for 40 more acres to seed next spring. The owl's wingspan, at least 5 feet, though it weighed no more than what he could hold in his 10-year-old palms. All feathers and fluff, shadow and light. After dusk, this is where the man watches the piled bush burn, remembers the owl's yellow eyes, hiss and snap of heat, sap, leaves, hank of dew, osteoache, the shrinking moon. Zephaniah 1. It's true what they say. We were warned. Everything will be swept away, everything consumed. Winter killed perch, walleye, pike, white bellies, slack flags, thousands washed ashore at Stony Lake. Fertilizer runoff, nitrogen, phosphorus, blue-green algae bloom. It's true, we were warned. Everything swept away, everything consumed. Sky bled dry of midges, locusts, bees, neurons frayed, antiseptic silence of canola fields at dusk, muted grasshopper thrum. Our blood poured out like dust. Swept away, consumed, empty barn swallow nests in rafters and eaves. The western meadowlark's throat, an open grave. Neonic coated soybean, canola, sunflower, wheat. White-crowned sparrows, migration delayed, anorexic, compass lost. A land possessed of nettles and salt. Ferruginous hawk, black-tailed prairie dog, bobolink, long spurs, pipits, swift fox, whippoorwill, piping plover, whooping crane, sage grouse. We were warned. Fish, fowl, animal. And they who weigh silver, merchants and traders. Great Plains auctions. With food in our throats, we asked for more. With food in our mouths, we still asked for more. There was meat and bread, but our craving unslaked. Fat gardens, braids of onion, bled heifers and pigs, skinned, scalded, scraped. Sure, we were sad to see our neighbors go, bid extra on their socket sets, air compressors, leftover 5-gallon pails of hydraulic oil, sold the auctioneer's speakers rattled in his truck bed. We told ourselves if they could, they'd do the same. Frost out of the ground, we poured red froth, Vitamax, into our auger boxes of churning seed to stop stinking smut, sea sativas, root rot, soil-borne disease. Old St. Benedict Church, rural municipality of Hoodoo, where beeswax, chrism, myrrh, where teething babies on mother laps pulled and sucked fistfuls of faux pearl, where we laid out our tongues for bread, where dust circled in stained light, where cradles, where coffins, where holy water rained. Black mold climbs the walls, trapped breath of petitions, a choir of shorthorn grasshoppers, a choir of katydids, a choir of wind. The cantor sings, "Let me begin again. This was our new heaven. This was our new earth, where our former homes were forgotten. Outside, a taxic mule deer stutter between mossed and dated stones. Our bones in the lone womb, the dirt of our new Jerusalem." The title of this poem is a plaque that's at an abandoned graveyard in rural Saskatchewan. The parish of St. Scholastica erected this monument in memory of those buried here, 1976. St. Scholastica's fall supper, 6 feet deep in the earth. Sod ceiling drips pesticide leach. bones laced with malathion, 2,4-D, turnip smell of canola and stinkweed, wild oats and kosher roots tangled in hair. Don't mention the cutworms that chew dresses and best denims. Parishioners, we paid our fees to feast, tossed 30 pieces on the temple floor, the Dominion Lands Act, 1872, proved up on our field of blood, 160 acres of oxbow sandy loam. Cheekbones and mandibles gleam. Mothers give toddlers drumsticks to gnaw, cartilage and marrow. Don't mention the bread was salted with tears. Don't mention the bowlfuls and bowlfuls of tears. Parishioners, push back your chairs, bring out the accordion, waltz and polka, turn and turn. Your bones knit rich dirt. Sated babies snooze on half moons of mother shoulders. Don't mention the tremble, the 700 horsepower John Deere overhead, the tank tread, the stretching bellows, the thickening drone. My ghost waits for me here. So I'm just going to read one more poem, and this sort of shifts gears quite significantly. This is, I lived in Glasgow for a number of years, and this poem comes from that time. To Glasgow. Standing on the platform, Manchester, Victoria, waiting for the after-supper train, home to Glasgow. Spring sky, bruised fruit, pigeons in eaves, rain-bloated newsprint, overripe peonies that line the porch at the farm, long sold. A breeze lifts my hair, sweat of my nape, a train, not mine, shoots past. Diesel, smoke from the burn barrel at dusk, the farm again, dew on blue stem, my body, my breath, my face in the windows of passing cars. I am, there is no going back. Thank you.
Thanks for coming, everyone. Thanks so much to Sheri for joining me. I think my favorite poem from that collection is the one about the farmer who goes into the blizzard, and he's got this rope tied around him, and his wife is on the other end, so he can like kind of find his way back to the house through the snowstorm. I should have told you to read that one. My new collection is Kink Bands. It focuses a lot on geology and ideas around deep time and seismic shifts and geological changes. I'm not a geologist, but I became really interested in these ideas over the past 10 years or so. And I ended up doing a lot of research, and my father-in-law isn't a geologist, so he would take me on these trips into the Rocky Mountains and kind of show me these strange formations. I took some courses and things like that. The name itself, Kink Bands, comes from this very strange type of formation where there's kind of pressure along the tectonic plates, but instead of creating slow folds or thrust faults or anything like that, you get these really strange, angular, jagged formations, which look really strange. But I kind of like the idea of that as sort of the slow motion response to pressure and kind of this angular image that it creates. So that's sort of where the title came from. The first poem is called Plastiglomerate. This is the first poem of the book. Plastiglomerate is a term that scientists have come up with for this new type of rock that they've discovered. And it's almost sort of this frightening type of rock because it's molten plastic that mixes with sand and rock in a natural area. And so I was intrigued by this idea and kind of horrified of it, that humans are kind of making a new type of rock that is now part of the lithic strata of our world. So the poem follows a lot of ancient ideas about what mountains were for, like why they were there, and then eventually kind of leads us to this plastiglomerate. This mountain swells with unfurled terrain tides. This mountain pickets the continental divide. This mountain lords its frozen obligatos over range road stays. This mountain writhed from surf to stack its fins. This mountain corrals river riots and breakers battering roots. This mountain bullies ocean airs into gambling savings, crows as they sulk shirtless, parched down the lee side exit from town. This mountain's a suck-up to sun's aspect angle, self-conscious of latitudinal rusticity. This mountain siphons lung bellows. This mountain's a shredded sin shell, marooned after the yoke flooded our mundane world. This mountain coerces Gorgon wannabes into fermenting mineral memory. This mountain chaperones us to a vacated beach where we ransack forensic rucksacks and sacrifice a drained Fanta to the flames of a new fate. Refret the plastic silhouette in fishing nets, torture form and fire, bury the effigy under sandcastles so it will hatch molecular hook hands to wrangle bilious basalt, cloak its hunks of coral shivs and snuffed shells. While we doze, bottle is abducted by subduction, and in deep time dreams, the artificial moment is our contribution to the lithic record, signing a hail and farewell from bedrock to futures. The second poem is called Nicholas Steno Opens a Door, which doesn't sound terribly exciting. Nicholas Steno, it was a 16th century Italian monk, but he's also kind of considered the father of geology and thinking about the age of the earth and kind of tracking the lithic layers. And he was sort of famously torn between his religious convictions and kind of the scientific discoveries that he's been making. And even today, both sides sort of want to claim them for their own. The first line of the poem sounds very strange, but it is true. And then from there, maybe less so. Mr. Medici was kind enough to mail me a shark. And when I had fitted my head within its jaws, I saw its teeth were not strangers, like those feisty angles I tread upon when beach-bound. Whereas Pliny says fossils are tossed from the moon, and Kircher lectures they are geocosmic tears, I trust this beast could devour a mountain, play perpendicular with epochs to discipline me for silt runs, pilot my pocket watch gears. I remove my mind from this mouth and chant. A carnivore is a door to our petrified future. Entombed upright, I'm sleeping with a shark fostered in my arms to prove all that rises once lay down. The next one was inspired by, I was reading a book on dust, which doesn't sound exciting, but it was pretty exciting. And I was learning about how lichens will grow into small cracks in rocks, and then they absorb water and kind of break open the rock, which creates dust, and then the lichens eat that dust, which I thought was pretty cool. And then that got me to thinking about my very brief career as a concrete cutter that only lasted a couple of weeks. But there's a lot of kind of dust and things that you're breathing in that industry that can be really harmful to you. So this is called slab saw, which is one of the tools they use. Outside the shop, lichens are liquors. They smuggle hyphae tongues into rock flaws, chug vapor, bloat, then frack lithic treasure. In cahoots to bleed out a map, algae and fungi sod bust for squalid idlers. Dust is a ghost given up, mineral soul for gobbling. My slurried jeans are 2 steps behind Henry's saw evicting plates from the road. I vacuum silt sluiced from a wet cut screen. But a veil of quartz flourishes around us as microscopic shards get napped into bifaces, blades, by diamond fangs spinning a smirk. Lunch, steel toes shored on desk, drawers glutted with butts, moldy mugs, tarred phone books, Henry again telling how the wife slept with his best friend, so he plowed a car into his house. And in our lungs, macrophages purse their lips to siphon silica grit. But those fluted points skewer the centuries, leaving breathless constellations shivering in an X-ray's midnight. I'm at the wheel, testing brakes play, as Henry ouija's the radio dial with smoke cloaking his fuzzed laugh, and lichens still dividing up dust. The next one is another one that kind of came about with some research, and there's a type of plastic called pyroplastic. So it's plastic that has been subjected to heat, and it kind of changes the form. But a lot of these bits will wash up on beaches, and they almost kind of blend in with the rocks on the beaches. And again, I was kind of fascinated with this idea that we're creating this sort of fake plastic rock layer that's just sort of blending in, and you can't even tell which is real and which is fake. So this is called pyroplastic pond. We dogged the coast today, waymaking as breccia kindled throbs in arches. Around us, forged from earth's innards, gasping in puckered waves, these slabs sounded by water. Redeemed from the undertow, here, an imposter flourishes. Like tide-napped neighbors, it's one more incessant pebble, but not of the family, birthed from scurry-fired polymers. Trick up one of these fakes to palm scale it, too light. With a flush rendered form, assuming shoreline's shingle, this one eroded fast forward, upstaging a natural tempo. Pocket the knockoff rock, stunned we've counterfeited so much wild, even lithic life. After this walk betrayed by wheezes, we're secured in a car sustained with plastic. The next one is the longest poem in the book. It's more of a narrative, and it's more of thinking about geology and deep time and these metaphors in more of a personal sense, thinking about trips that I've made with my family to visit glaciers and looking back at family history and things like that. So this is called Eroded Travel. The car pitches west under Devonian shades, while our kids limn drumlins swelling past windows. We should be sighting front ranges, but Yamnuska's puckered mask is swarmed by a stratus pack. We're bound for a glacier's snout, more monastic with each season, which rations out chatter marks between ice today and when I last faced the terminus. Stretch break by a scarp announcing its anticline. My daughter grins at potato stones, woken from a bed the stream has ditched. She heaves refined cobbles. A scuttling corse tucks the lobs in a duvet of held breath, and her face casts for more. Tacoed rock in hand, my son asks why earth folds itself. With my boots ruffling water's zeal, I wonder how to render the years for bending shale, when this trip to him makes an era. If we took this creek at its word and braced for an argument with the city, we could alight at a shore to watch high rises accumulating and drape our arms over a lacquered bench engraved with my brother's name. The highway unveils a cement plant, shoots gnashing a carbonate cache. Stalks strip the quarry, wad up prey, and hoard clinkers in a sealed dome. In lieu of erosion slow slashing, these cookers increase nature's speed, deposit concrete along the trough and into braided roads. Continent's ballast is rebalanced by the shells and bones paving our path. A man, my children, will never meet. The date is concretion in my mind, a swelling nucleus that siphons memories embedded in tide strata, exposed by a voice on the radio that fractures an outcrop, revealing this strange ball of grief. 16 years since he died. My son begs the disc to skirt the skin of water's machine, but he gives up in a sunken galump. His arm's young arc can't master the knuckle knack needed to syncopate a flowing ostinato. while my wife whips stones that suture across liquid wounds. My brother is the KT boundary seared through family seams, gaunt line visible after impact. Alien elements, shocked quartz, cross this threshold from rock to room. His mute moraine of clutter, empty fridge, cigarettes in the freezer, signature signifying he's not coming back. Switchbacking by foot up the ridge, our souls scuff petrified corals. Athabasca, outwashing from toe, rejects our advances. Son and daughter pose before a glacier their life will outlast. Aging will metamorphose them into forms beyond my recognition. How should I explain that uniformity of Earth can be jarred during their own microscopic span? We freeze for a photograph, but the present is ablating. Our bygones bleed via moulins and aquifers. We are here to see the going. About face at the Stygian off-ramp with its Hades-stewed slate. Purple plates scoffing as our taillights shrink. We wind back on unwound ropes of asphalt. My son cups a quartzite memento that magnetizes his return. Ice remains a retreating burden. Wind rasp curdles in my ears. Spread throughout the book are some small, fairly dense languagey poems that serve to be almost like little outcroppings in the text. And this is one of them. My father-in-law took me to see this little outcropping just outside of Canmore. And the reason he wanted to show it to me was it was so strange. Like you couldn't really see where the bedding was, and there was fractures and faults all over the place. And it was just kind of a mess. So he kind of liked the idea that sometimes geologists look at things like this and they have no idea what's going on. So this is called Kootenai Group. This outcrop chops logic. A blender of interbedded shale and silt smuggled in glacial meal is exhumed by clastic talking cures. Hair-pinning rube seams, fist-bump mudstone squatters chugging O2 brews, while boho aspens snort coal to cook up a scree of showboating fancy dans. En route to a cirque scoop of lamp house stockpiles slag. Moss plots cements nap, reclaiming dimpled vugs. Sphagnum beards hum here. And I've got two more for you. This next one is again about this idea that I came across, something called legacy pollutants. So in the 20th century, there were a lot of chemicals that were used, like DDT, which we don't use anymore because we know how dangerous they are. But at the time they were used, a lot of them evaporated into the air and then precipitated onto some glaciers. And as glaciers are now receding and melting, a number of these chemicals that we thought were gone forever are coming back to haunt us. So this is a poem called Reunion. We're closing in on the toe of Athabasca Glacier, trailing chatter marks and striations. The ice advances and recedes each day, smeared in rusty microbes that blunt albedo. This field is a pollutant cold storage, inheritance stilled by stunned whitecaps. Our tread marks center the snow, fusing flakes by evicting blisters of air. We sidestep moulins that seduce our path, striving to devour another hiker. Beneath the ferns seal, split leg molecules of DDT camouflage, sweating it out. Entombed in a wintry womb, these microscopic seeds pine to teem back into mainstreams. Prodigal isomers remind me this chemical bond is for life. Nerve signals crowed open, eggshells leached of calcium, sperm tranquilized, and cancer frenzied in the liver. When the ice at last ablates and meltwater punctures the terminal moraine's lip, human residues will lie as stowaways, sown in outwash, nested in water tables. We stand on the frozen grade, knowing the next snowfall will scumble our tracks, while molecular scrimmage seethes in the glacial cage. primed to dog its way home. The last one's a bit of an oddball one. One of the ideas that I come up with and explore in the book is not only geological ideas, but also using some of those metaphors to think about the English language and kind of digging back into the layers of different types of English. And I came across this idea from a poet and researcher in the 19th century named William Barnes. And he had this idea that he wanted to remove sort of the Latin and Greek words in English and replace them with something more English. And he kind of came up with this idea. It didn't catch on, and they ended up sounding really strange. But I like this idea as this is sort of a linguistic fossil kind of sitting in the language record. And it's a poem about a fossil. And so it's sort of translated into his weird version of English. And my wife was asking me about it. And I would have to kind of retranslate it back to really figure out what's going on. But she didn't like that. Even I don't really know quite what's happening. So this is called Petrified Willow Leaves. O falsome thing forestoned, what brangle brought you here? Thorough shining leaves once groom, full ended now, breaksome with fear. High deedy earth whips life grist, your kin stem forefrets in checkless time. A faith law enholds you with frozen return vows to welcome heirs prime. Foredotted breath terrored the man who trode we so continents to be. Up cleaning limbs unfriend the bold, but wind quickening still is matterly. Thank you so much. I just want to give a big thanks to McNally Robinson for hosting me this evening, and also big thanks to the League of Canadian Poets for supporting my my journey out here. I'm from Calgary, so I wouldn't be able to do it without them. And thanks to all of you for joining me, and thanks to Sheri for kicking things off.
I'll just say a quick word before I let you go. I'd like to thank David and Sheri again for being with us tonight. We, of course, have copies of Kink Bands as well as Field Requiem on the desk to your right. And if you'd like your copy signed or if you'd like to say hello, I'm sure the authors will be very happy to meet you. Thank you all for coming tonight and enjoy the rest of your evening.